Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst. Here I am, John Sneisen, and Canada, one of the greatest leaders in the world at debt. And we've been reporting on the debt of Canada for a long time, but it just seems to be getting worse all the time. It's almost like we've been right all along about how terrible centralization, central planning, and the printing of vast amounts of currency is. There's a lot to go into in this video, and we're going to go to John. But first, I want to get into this article from the Financial Post that says, post-haste, Canada's world-leading debt could be its downfall in global downturn, report warns. You don't say. This article from Pamela Heaven goes into this in depth here, as it says, good morning. Canada is a world leader in debt. This is no secret. The Bank of Canada has identified household debt as one of the biggest risks to our economy, and a number of international bodies have also raised red flags. Now, a new economic report for the Macdonald-Laurier Institute argues that Canada's combination of weak economic growth, a reliance on consumer and government spending, and a rising debt load makes it particularly vulnerable to a global downturn. How bad is our debt? Total credit for the non-financial sector in Canada as a proportion of GDP was 305.7% in the second quarter of 2019, according to the Bank for International Settlements. That's higher than the average of Canada's economic peers at 272.3%, which, by the way, is not good either. Continuing on here, it says, since 2008, that debt to GDP ratio has risen 32.5%, compared with an average rise of 13.8% in other advanced economies. Why is it so high? The study's author, Philip Cross, says one of the main reasons is, ironically, because our banking system and borrowing reputation escaped largely unscathed from the financial crisis. And that is debatable, but continuing on, it says, as a result, debt levels never fell in Canada as they did in other countries, which, while historically low interest rates led to a steady increase in borrowing. Households led that borrowing binge, with debt rising to 100.3% of Canada's GDP, the highest of any nation except Denmark, 115%, and nearly twice the G20 average of 59.5%. In the United States, it's 75%. A growing number of bankruptcies is another disturbing trend. In the third quarter of 2019, insolvencies rose 14.5% from a year earlier. And I quote, if households already are having trouble managing their record debt levels when employment is high and interest rates low, these difficulties will multiply as the global economy continues to decelerate, Cross wrote. Cross said, if exports slump in a global downturn, dominoes would fall. And I quote, lower corporate earnings from exports would lead to job cuts and falling household income, in turn squeezing government revenues. Falling domestic demand would reinforce lower export earnings. On the bright side, Cross says, Canada's debt problem is unlikely to trigger a banking crisis because of how our system is structured and financed. John, let's go into some of this. I don't even know where to begin. What do you think about this story?
Our banking system is solid. That's all. That's all you need to take out of this. Let's just end the video right there, Josh. It's all fine here in Canada.
Sounds
nothing
good to me.
Nothing wrong is going on.
Well, actually,
I think they're a little bit late to the party here, talking about the debt addiction, because I have look at this. I have on chapter 9, I published this book in 2017, but it was actually written in 2016, but it says the Canadian debt addiction. So, it's no surprise that this is happening. Of course, I predicted this to happen in the book, and I said that, the debt will not go down, it'll continue to rise up until a breaking point where you call it peak debt. And when that peak debt happens, there's no way out of it other than, all these bankruptcies.
Wait, are you saying, John, that the government and banks enjoy and like and maybe even are addicted to debt?
Well, yeah, of course. The government here in Canada, provincial or federal, all of them are just paying the interest on the debt. Nobody pay down that. Everybody's just on a massive debt binge, and this is like globally. If you look at the other, the bigger economies here that people are afraid of the UK being in trouble. Well, they're only almost just half of what Canada has in total debt to GDP non-financials, which is ridiculous. And of course, in 2017, funny enough, when I came out with my book, Josh, and predicted this financial calamity, in this report, the Macdonald-Laurier report, it actually shows that it peaked out, the retail sales peaked out in 2017, and it's actually just trying to bounce above $48 billion, and it can't. It's actually stuck underneath it, and it's actually not ever gone above that level again. So you're seeing the economy struggling. And on top of that, not to mention, the oil just got, the oil sector in Alberta just got punched in the gut with, oil prices currently being at $30 a barrel, which is, $25 below all the other oil from other places like in Norway or from Saudi Arabia.
Well, John, surely carbon tax will fix that.
Of course. Yeah, you just tax anything and it'll magically, fix the world. Look at carbon taxes in Norway since 1992, and we still have, 42% increase in CO2 emissions. Not that CO2 is actually that bad. It's pollution that's bad. And that's what, these idiots are going to focus on. But of course,
it's funny that government is the biggest polluter on the planet, and they think taxing poor people is going to change that. But John, I do want to ask regarding this story, how do you think this affects the average person the most? Because obviously, the number one thing we need to focus on is, our Canadian viewers. How are they going to be affected by this debt behemoth that we're seeing from all levels, private and public?
Well, they can't afford to pay for their, everyday spendings. You're looking at the inflation, the way they calculate the inflation, for example, I looked at it and I was just blown away. For example, the M3 total debt in circulation is up on an annual basis about 9%. Meanwhile, the actual, inflation is 1.9. Well, where's the inflation going then? Where's all this, debt slushing into? Well, it meant mostly into real estate. And look at Toronto and Vancouver, the two big real estate markets, are still, inching up and above and a little bit more every day. But the problem there is that when you go and look at the CPI, the way they calculate it, Josh, they calculated it at 25.6% of your total housing costs. Of your budget is 25.6%. Well, in Toronto and Vancouver, 50% of the people live. Well, they have 75 to over 80%. It's ridiculous. And so you're seeing these people are getting squeezed left, right, and center. People can't afford to live downtown Toronto. They're losing out, and people are getting to the point of France where they can't, afford to pay and get their food anymore. And that's the breaking point. That's when revolutions happens. And look at France. It's in total chaos. Every day there's a strike, or people are not, willing to work for this, because the problem is, on the one side, inflation is destroying the purchasing power of their salaries, and on the other side, the government is raising taxes slowly and incrementally.
Oh yeah, John, they're slaves.
Double-sided whammy.
I mean, there's no other way to put it other than they're slaves. When you're working more than half the year to pay off the interest on the debt on a fraudulent currency being created that actually also causes you to be more impoverished, that's slavery. There's no other word for it. That's not a collective good. That's, people keep calling these politicians public servants. If they were servants, if they're in any way servants, then why are you being extorted to pay off their family vacation homes? I mean, it's insane. But and for them to extort you more, of course. But I want to ask, there's two big things I want to hit on in this video coming up here, John. First, they talk about how this could affect Canada in a major collapse scenario. Look, we're looking at an everything bubble worldwide, currency bubbles, interest rates going down all across the board. Recession is in the news, even the mainstream today, because it's getting to the point where it cannot be ignored anymore. We are being vindicated, regardless of the people who will comment 2 seconds after clicking on this video below in the comments and say something negative of, oh, you've been saying this for so long and we've been right all along and they don't pay attention to the video, you cannot put a date on any of this stuff, blah, blah, blah. But I wanted to ask you, with them talking about this affecting Canada in the case of a collapse, where do you see Canada as a domino on the domino fall of a global collapse? Like, where do you see it placed? It's certainly not the first place that'll collapse, but it certainly won't be the last place that'll collapse. Where do you kind of place it as far as the global collapse that is definitely on the near horizon?
Well, Canada is struggling because they're so dependent on the United States, and the United States economy is slowing down heavily as well. On top of that, and the problem with Canada is we're one-trick pony. It's mostly the United States, and they're saying, oh, we should go to China and have them buy everything from us. But the problem is that the Chinese, they don't want to buy from Canada as well that much. So Canada has a government that is just way out of whack, spending all this money, and then they have to get more money back in taxes. So people are getting broke left, right, and center. And this is what's happening, is that over time, as these small increases in taxes and the inflation is trickling into the economy because people are exiting out of real estate, you will have people will see, their salaries, if they've been stagnant, for example, over the 4 or 5 years, well, now they probably lost like 7-8% every year in purchasing power. And they're really starting to see that they don't have very much money left to actually be able to afford any crisis where they lose their job or when the economy slows down. So people are not prepared whatsoever, and people are going to struggle. You're going to see people in the street. You see a lot of more homeless people, and that's the effect of all this money printing. And nobody seems to understand that. None on the left side seems to understand it. They just want modern monetary theory of printing more money or universal basic income. They don't understand that, you can just print more money, but the problem is the purchasing power is not going to do any greater. And even if you do like Venezuela, raise the minimum wage 3,000%, that didn't help them at all. They're on their second currency now that is going into hyperinflation as well. On top of the first one, they had Bolívar's Fuerte, and now they have Bolívar's Soberano that is going down as well. So what you're seeing, Canada will probably be one of the later ones to go out of the because we have a little bit of a struggle. And I wrote about this in my book, Canada, the Greatest Economy in the World. Where we have a lot of the Western provinces, excluding kind of BC, but you have a lot of commodities and you have a lot of agricultural sector in those areas. So probably the ones that will do the best, and that's why probably you're seeing the Wexit movement is growing so rapidly, is that people are fed up with getting sucked out all the wealth from their provinces. The Wexit movement is exactly almost very similar to what's happening in Spain with the Basques trying to move out of the economy because they're very wealthy, they're prosperous, so they're trying to get out because they're just getting sucked dry by the people that are not working. The problem here in Manitoba, though, is in Manitoba they have almost 60% working for the government, and that's not sustainable. If you believe that 40% of the population will feed the 60% of the population, that's totally wrong. You are seeing like all over the place now more of this. What cracked and had these economies in Europe, Southern Europe collapse, was that they went about 50% of the economy being government. Now you're there in Canada, in Norway, in Sweden, in France, all these major, and in Germany, all these major economies have their government being just so overbloated, and it's just destroying and it's strangling every single human being because they got to pay more taxes, and then the government is just blatantly going into deficit spending, printing more money into the economy. So it's
surely Trudeau sending more billions of dollars to infrastructure in Saudi Arabia and China will fix this problem. Finishing it up, we'll try to do this question quickly, John. I wanted to hear your thoughts finally on the end of the article and them going into how there won't be a banking crisis of any kind, that he's not worried about a banking crisis. You kind of alluded to it earlier, but was there going to be a banking crisis in Canada?
No, don't worry about it. It's all fine. No, it's the thing is in my book here, I talked about the CDIC having only 0.39% of the deposits under 100,000 that's supposed to be insured. So just a one bank going down, will totally collapse everything. And the problem here too is we have the zero reserve policy. The banks doesn't even have to have reserves, and they have very little. The major banks here have under 10%. Most of them, from 3 till 1%, and even below that, and then the credit unions are at the same place. So if they believe that the Canadian banks are strong, they always say that, oh, Canadian banks are strong. Well, they might be a little bit strong because some of them borrow money into the commodity and agricultural sector. So that's a little bit of a better, that's actually doing something for the economy. But meanwhile, on the other side, they printed just tremendous amounts of money and borrow that to the government. So I don't see this, like the banking system here is very weak, Josh. And what will happen this summer, we are having bank runs coming to a city near you, and we're going to start here in Canada potentially. But I also are planning to potentially do this out at we're going to the Red Pill Expo on Jekyll Island this year, where all these shenanigans started in the first place, why we have the modern central banking system that we have today, Josh. So just prepare yourself, because bank runs, and these banks are very weak. Canadian banks doesn't have any cash almost at all to protect themselves. And when that comes, the banks could try to sell all their assets. They told me, the bankers, it's like, don't worry, we got all these bonds and everything that we can sell. Well, if nobody wants your debt, if your debt is insolvent, if the government is insolvent, no one is going to buy that garbage that you have on your balance sheet in the first place. So banks in Canada is weak, and they're ready to fall at any time. We're going to see negative interest rates here very soon in Canada. As soon as there's more defaults coming in, it's going to go negative, and it's just like going to continue collapsing.
Yeah, and debt, of course, is a historic tool of subservience among the masses, and banks and governments utilize it to the best of their benefit, but it always ends up the same way. The climax always ends up. It's a bad ending for both the banking system, the government, and the people all together, and that's why you watching need to take action. I want to allude to what you just mentioned there, John, about the Red Pill Expo at Jekyll Island, Georgia, this coming June. Of course, G. Edward Griffin's Red Pill Expo.
You got to be there. This is the big one.
It'll actually be at the place, the site, the place where the Federal Reserve was created. So use promo code WHAM. Use promo code WHAM, WAM, to get your tickets on that for that and save some money. But it's going to be exciting. But as always, guys, it really does come down to you, self-sufficient, independence, being able to take care of your own life, free yourself, free your money, free your mind, free your life, free yourself from the chains that unfortunately so many revere. And as always, food, water, shelter, self-defense. You're not gathering things with the toughest guy on the block. Gold and silver as wealth insurance, and not investment advice, but just, my opinion. I mean, it's wealth insurance. It's not meant as investment anyway. Cryptocurrencies that are fundamentally useful and decentralized, mainly the privacy-oriented ones, which more and more people are looking at, so they're for a multitude of reasons. And as always, do your own due diligence, guys. But at the end of the day, you must do whatever you can to save yourself and your family from the debt behemoth that is approaching, encroaching, and happening very, very fast. And, we've been reporting on it for many years, and it's just been getting worse for many years. And I want everyone to let us know in the comments below what you think about all this. Let us know what you think of Canada's economy, what Trudeau's doing with your, extorted money. And obviously, if you're from other countries, let us know about what's going on there. Comment below, press like on the video, and check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar, to help keep independent media alive, because we are shadow banned to death, and we cannot do it without you. Susan Woznicki, the CEO of YouTube, comes in, says that she's cutting down the views on quote-unquote controversial content by 70%, guys. It's been 85% plus for us since January of last year, and 97% demonetization. So we cannot do it without you. You guys are the ones that will prolong the spread of free information online. You fix this this problem the best. You guys are the ones that keep us up and running and allow us to reach new people all the time, educate new people, and hopefully people will be able to take that information and save themselves from this behemoth of debt and destruction that's coming at us. It's fraud. It's a scam. It's the greatest scam ever bestowed upon the public. Also find us on float.app, flote.app, and we post a lot of videos and statuses and posts on there. So stay tuned for the latest up on those social media sites. But anyway, I really appreciate you joining us today, John. There's so much to go into. Final words?
Well, the final word is read my book and see what's coming. It's about time you pick it up now. It's been 3 years, and finally mainstream media is picking up on what's actually happening here. So I believe that's just the action that you need to take. Read what's going to happen, what I believe is going to happen with the economy. And I believe this for a very long time, and it's coming into fruition in Canada, and there's no way out of it. And just protect yourself. Gold prices in Canada is at record highs. If you listen to me, you probably were lucky and you bought some gold and silver, so you have some wealth protection from the eroding purchasing power of the Canadian dollar.
Absolutely. Well, we're always remember, guys, taxation is theft, government is organized crime. Don't be a slave. And right below in the comments, end all central banks. End all central banks. Anyway, I appreciate you joining us today, John. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here at WHAM, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We cannot do it without you guys. Every donation is extremely, extremely appreciated as we're getting incredibly shadow banned. We've lost 80% of our audience since January of 2019 and counting. They are ripping us apart here on YouTube, and the only thing we could do in the meantime as we prepare for the next big step is to ask for help from the viewers that support our free information that we try to post on a daily basis. You can also find us on Subscribestar, where just $1 a month, that's all it takes, $1 a month is all it takes to truly make a huge difference. If everyone gave $1 a month, it would change everything for independent media, and we could win this information war, and we can defeat the mainstream medias eventually. And of course, on Subscribestar, we post subscriber-only content that you'll only see on Subscribestar. So make sure to pledge there, become a patron. That makes a huge difference, guys. And also, don't forget to check out our Bitcoin address below in the comments and description, as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on the alternatives. We will likely be deleted by YouTube in the next 2 years. It's already happening on a vast scale, so make sure to find us on float.app, that's flote.app, at Josh Sigurdson, as well as at WHAM, W-A-M. Float.app is replacing every social media, and I mean, it's just incredible the opportunities it provides for not just creators, but for the average person who wants to get away from these nannies telling them what they can or cannot see. They plan to replace Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon. You could subscribe to us on Float and pledge with cryptocurrency. It's really innovative. We are also on BitChute at World Alternative Media, as well as so many others, Minds, PocketNet. You can find us at World Alternative Media on Instagram. There's many options. And finally, don't forget to join us at Anarchapulco 2020, the famous event, the best liberty event known to mankind, other than perhaps Anarcho Vegas 2020. There are 2 major events coming up that we are extremely excited about, and you can use promo code WHAM, that's W-A-M, and save 10% on your tickets to these legendary conferences. There's so many amazing people speaking there. You won't want to miss it. So make sure to support in any way you can, even if it's just sharing our videos, pressing like, pressing to be notified. Anything helps, folks. You are the change you wish to see. Thanks for watching, everyone. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.